And I realize I have some typos in there.
Oh, yeah.
Kept
me off the fields of war. A girl has just one use on the front. I
started my work as a composer when I was in grad school and in college, majored in composition. And a lot of my work was in church music for a while, but then I branched out into some other things. But I write a lot of choral music, a lot of vocal music, so I've worked with words for a long time. But I also love teaching. I've been teaching students and love to see the light bulb go on in the classroom. When I heard this story for the first time, I have to say that I was 64 years old and I had never known some of these stories, that there were women who had done so much. They had sacrificed, they had risked it all really in their lives so that we women could have a right to vote in the United States. Well, we're writing about the last run-up to when Congress finally passed the 19th Amendment, which had been languishing for about 40 years. There was a lot of rhetoric in Congress that said women shouldn't vote. And a young woman came on the scene. Her name was Alice Paul, and she kind of shook up some of the old guard and started doing some things differently.
For me, the entry point was really about this different philosophies of leadership, revolutionary, working outside the system versus working inside the system. And kind of my background as a dramatist is always thinking about this idea that everyone's the hero of their own story. And so these people who were very much obstacles to Alice Paul in the way that she wanted to achieve this, you know, they're also doing what they think is right and what they think is best, and finding that opposition and finding the drama in how you know, these different ideals collide and ultimately ended up with something that's very powerful and very important to our American story.
Art tells stories in ways that are different from just reading the newspaper or whatever. And there's been a lot of attention on the run-up to the 100th anniversary of women's right to vote. But when you read an article in the newspaper, in fact, I sent Kaven a link at one point of a Washington Post article that was when commemorating the Night of Terror, which was a night that women were tortured in prison in the United States. Women were tortured in prison in the United States because they dared say they wanted the right to vote. And there was an article about it, but you know, somebody's going to read that, but seeing that happen on stage and hearing music that enhances that is going to make it more real and come alive. I think that's what art does for us. We see and we experience stories in different ways than just reading a book or reading a newspaper article about it. We're writing it in mind that if the high schools and colleges can take on this production and produce it, because if young women take these parts, they will say, oh really, somebody died doing this? Oh really, somebody was tortured in prison? I need to learn more about that, because I think we've seen that in historical, you know, whether they're plays or musicals, people then go and research more about the topic because they become interested in it. So that's my goal, is that young women in particular will learn about the women who have come before them.